Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. And for some of you, a lot of you actually, you're going to remember this story because I've already done it. And in my infinite wisdom, about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, I deleted it. I deleted it out of one file and it completely disappeared. So it did resonate with me, this story. You know, me and this girl would have been the same age, and it's such a sad story. It was my first one, and I thought I want to do it again. So if you have seen it, you could watch again if you wanted to. Or I understand if you're going to turn off now. I do understand. But it's from a show called Britain's Darkest Taboos, which I have done a lot of stories from. And it's Kellyanne Bates. I did it the first time around, I'll do it again. It's like, it's such a... But Kellyanne Bates was born on the 18th of May 1978, which only made her a month older than me. And she's a cute little girl. You know, there are early photos of her, very cute. Her parents are Margaret and Tommy Bates, and she's got an older and a younger brother called Andrew and Paul. And she's a really bright, bubbly, you know, outgoing little girl. You know, they're a lovely family. You know, as she's growing up, she's very mature. She's very ahead of her years, Kelly is. And her parents, her mum and dad are both on the show. And her mum does say they only ever gave the kids one role when they were growing up. She said no, then Tommy said no. You know, that was the rule. But they basically gave Kelly a lot of independence. You know, her mum wanted her to have a confidence that she didn't have as a teenager. And they trusted her. And she was very trustworthy. Well, when Kelly was 14, she started mentioning a boy her mum thought called Dave Smith. And she'd say, Dave's walked me home, or me and Dave have done this. And her mum and dad fully thought it was someone of her own age. And anyway, after a couple of weeks, they meet Dave Smith, who actually claims he's 32. Kelly's 14. Let me just reiterate that again. So they're obviously gobsmacked. You know, don't know what to make of this at all. But, you know, the dad says on the show, he says it's very hard when you've allowed your kids all the time they're growing up to have this independence, and then, you know, all of a sudden say, actually, I don't trust this. And no, he likened it to, you know, give me my sweets back kind of thing. And they didn't want to say no. They wanted to trust Kelly. But it takes a few months to actually admit that Dave Smith is actually Jimmy Smith. And Jimmy Smith isn't 32, he's 48. 48. I'll say again, she's 14. Now, Emma Kenny, a psychologist who I think is fabulous. She's on a lot of shows, but I think she's a resident on Britain's Darkest Taboos. And she says that although a lot of people, I suppose even my comment then, you know, look at the parents and they're like, she was 14. You know, what was you thinking? Why didn't you break this up? Kelly had this real open relationship with her parents up until she met Jimmy. And they really trusted her, and they trusted that they would be involved in this relationship. And because she'd always been so mature and hung about with older people and just connected with older people, they just trusted her and hoped for the best. Now, obviously, all the trust they gave Kelly, from the get-go, she was lying because she was involved in this lie of his name and his age, obviously knowing that they'd be mortified. But even saying he's 32, you know, I suppose they couldn't say he was 18. You know, he didn't look 18, did he? Now, you will see a photo of him. He's such a creepy looking guy. So creepy. I mean, it's the one photo you see on the show, you see it on the internet, it's one photo. I don't know, did he look a different way when Kelly met him, but he just looks so creepy. Now, Laura Richards, again on the show, is a criminal behaviour analysis, and she obviously we all know now, Jimmy had been married before, I think for about 10 years, and that ended because Jimmy was a very violent man, very, very violent man, sadistic man. And when the marriage ends, he goes after younger and younger women until eventually it starts to turn into girls. And then he sees Kelly. You know, it's so sad to think, you know, she came in his line of sight at all. You know, and he becomes controlling of Kelly straight away. I mean, he's already got a line to her parents from very, very, well, from the get-go. And then, you know, all right, they tell the truth eventually, but, you know, he's very controlling, and Kelly's starting to keep a lot of secrets. Now, they've been seeing each other a year now, so Kelly's 15. 15, it catches in your throat, she's 15, which means he's 49. And she'd stay at his every weekend. Now, what Margaret, her mum, grew quite concerned about was she'd leave on the Friday, Kelly would, to go to his house, and she'd come back on the Sunday. Now, he'd phone Margaret's house, no mobiles, so he'd phone Margaret's house when he'd put Kelly on the bus, and then he'd phone the minute she got in, like he'd know how long it would take him to phone the minute she got in. Now, Margaret and Tommy, like I say, had given Kelly a lot of freedom, a lot of independence. They didn't check up on her like that, so Margaret was a bit like, hang on a minute, why is he showing more concern for our daughter than we would? You know, they weren't happy. You know, Margaret certainly knew something was off. So now, Kelly's been with him 2 years now, so she's 16. And a lot of Margaret's powers are lost now, you know, to kind of call the police or get social services involved, because Kelly is 16 now. And by this point, Kelly had stopped washing. Her hair was constantly greasy. She was always wearing very dark clothes, black and greys. And her mum says, you know, when she's talking about her on the show, that she'd just have her chin down and just stare at the floor. And Emmy Catney says, you know, by this point, her esteem would just be so low. She'd be so downtrodden by this controlling, manipulative man. You know, it got to the point that her mum said it wasn't her, it wasn't Kelly anymore. She wasn't bubbly, she wasn't bright, she was just miserable. Now, Margaret was trying a lot of things around this point, because she was very concerned about Kelly, really concerned. But at the same time, Kelly had got to the point, like I say, she's 16, she got to the point where she was staying at Jimmy's, not letting her parents know where she was, going for days and days on end. You know, she still is only 16, and Margaret says she was at her wit's end. You know, she just couldn't cope with what was happening in her house. And she says to Kelly, if this carries on, you're going to have to leave. You know, she didn't mean it. You know, she was kind of calling Kelly's bluff. She wanted an end to this. And that was her answer. Now, a couple of days after this ultimatum, Margaret gets home from work, and Kelly's there packing a bag. And she explains on the show that she's like, Kelly, what are you doing? And, you know, she's like, packing. You told me if I did this again, you know, I could just leave. And Margaret said, she said, you know, I didn't mean that. You know, I would never throw you out. You know, she didn't say she was trying to call a bluff, but, you know, that's what she was trying to do. And she says that Kelly stopped what she was doing and turned to face her, and the whole one side of her face was black. Like, she just didn't know what to do. And on the show, you actually see Margaret's hand shaking, you know, as she's explaining how her daughter looked. Now she obviously asked Kelly, what's happened, look, state your face, what's going on, very stressed like a mother would be. And Kelly was like, oh, I got jumped by some girls, and then a couple found me and took me back to the house. Really cryptic-y, kind of not giving anything away. But unfortunately, because I think Margaret still wanted to trust Kelly, I think she did. I don't think she wanted to admit what was obviously happening. So she just has to believe her. She has to. But she goes to her GP, Margaret does, and puts these concerns across. And what she was told to do was book an appointment in Kelly's name, go and see the doctor, and basically put all this forward. So if Kelly came in with any injuries, it'd be down on there, and maybe the GP could speak to her, a flag could go. I'm not sure, but that's the advice she was given, and she felt there was nothing. Her hands were tied. She didn't know what else to do. Now, Kelly had also started getting like fingertip bruising around her neck, and she walked in a couple of days later and she had a bite mark on her hand, which she tried to talk away as she fell on the mesh of a fence. Just real. Oh, it's just, you just want to think, oh, you're lying. And I don't know why Margaret couldn't say that, why she felt she couldn't say that, because she obviously knew she was lying. She just didn't know how to confront Kelly, I suppose. It was the relationship they had. And then Kelly comes to the family and she says she's got a new job, and it's working 2 till 10, and she'll get overtime, and basically she won't be able to come round for a while anymore. She'll be working weekends. But the mum says that Kelly was a grafter, and again, she found no reason to believe her. Kelly was so convincing that this was a fact, this is what was happening. Now, there was phone calls to begin with, not many, but then they stopped. And it got to the point where Mother's Day came and there was a card sent for Margaret. But Margaret says on the address and name, there was an indentation, like it'd been written over and over and over again, and she knew it wasn't Kelly's writing, she knew. Then I think another 2 weekends go by, and it's Tommy's birthday, her dad, and their anniversary, Margaret and Tommy's anniversary, and 2 cards do come in the post. Again, not in Kelly's handwriting, and Margaret actually says to Tommy at that point, I bet he's got us tied up somewhere. That's why she's not writing these cards. And I just think, oh, if you thought that, if you were thinking along them lines. What? But on the 16th of April, in 1996, Jimmy walks into a police station and he basically said his girlfriend's drowned in the bath. Very calm, very nonchalant about it. That's the right way. And just, my girlfriend's drowned in the bath. And when the police go around there, they see very, very, very quickly that Kelly, she drowned in the bath, but there was a lot more to this than that. And the police go around to Margaret and Tommy's and, ask Margaret and Tommy to sit down. They had some bad news for them. And Tommy says on the show, Margaret shot up at that point and says he's killed her. Jimmy's killed her. And he said his reaction was, no, how could someone kill someone they love? He seemed such a nice guy, and, didn't believe that of somebody. Margaret, although much more suspicious, obviously she didn't want to believe it either. But Jimmy had killed Kelly. Now, they want to go and see Kelly one last time, and they go to the hospital, and it's Manchester Royal, And Margaret explained you go kind of round the back, and they couldn't believe it when they seen her. They could only see through a window because, of course, it's a murder investigation, so they can't touch Kelly, but they could just see her. And Margaret said she couldn't believe it. She said last time Kelly had been at their house, she was a good 8.5 stone. Easy, you know, healthy looking, although, you know, bedraggled, not looked after in herself, but she was about 8.5 stone. And this poor girl in front of them, as she said, was about, I quote her, she said, a 5 stone weakling. You know, they couldn't believe what they were looking at, although Kelly was quite covered, as you'd imagine. And basically, Kelly had 150 injury sites for the 3 weeks. Now, obviously, Jimmy had been beating Kelly for quite a long time. The face, the bites, the fingertip bruising, you know, there was a lot going on already. But in the 3 weeks, he managed to get her away from her family with his ruse of she's got this job and she can't come out and see them. These are quite graphic. Now, I will warn you. They're just some of the things that was done to Kelly. Like I said, there's 150 injury sites. So in those 3 weeks, she was starved. She was tied to a radiator. She was scalped. She was stabbed. Her feet and her hands had crush injuries. Her knees had been kicked in. So obviously, with Margaret saying that he's probably got her tied up somewhere, she didn't write these. She had it nailed. She was tied to a radiator. He crushed her hands. She didn't write those cards. He'd used kitchen implements to torture her, like meat forks, etc. He gouged out her eyes and tried to sever the top optic nerve. No. It's very hard. It's very hard to talk about this. You know, this is a 17-year-old girl with someone she was with for 3 years, not someone she met, had the, you know, met that on a one-night stand. You know, 3 years she'd spent with this man. But I suppose it wasn't a case of he turned at the end. You know, it was a shock. He'd been doing this for quite some time, not to this extent, but had been building. And it's just so sad that she felt she couldn't, for whatever reason, confide in her parents. You know, you could tell they'd gone to the ends of the earth for her. And it's just such a shame. He was that manipulative and ground her down that badly that she didn't confide in anyone. She didn't tell anyone. She just lied. And Tommy, her dad, on the show, it is very, very sad to watch. He does say that, you know, they say that when your body reaches a certain level of pain, you stop feeling it. And he says he can't help wondering, did Kelly get to that point where she couldn't feel it any longer? You know, he does say he doesn't know one way or the other. And that's very, very sad to watch that bit, because you can just see his heartbreak as he's saying it. Now, the whole bit there in the show, if you do watch it, that whole bit with her parents is just, it's very, very upsetting. And, you know, you do find yourself questioning a little bit. And I think, bar a very brief interview, this show's the only kind of interview they've ever done. I think they got a lot of stick over this. And I think watching the show and hearing it, you know, their own words, and the explanation from the psychologist and stuff, you start to really feel for them, really, really feel for them. You don't know what you do in that position. You know, if you trusted your child. And, you know, me and Kelly were the same age, but I had very strict parents. And at 14, one 48-year-old man, but two, if I'd have brought him home, you know, it's it just never would have happened. But obviously Kelly had a different relationship of sorts. She was very mature. You know, I was quite immature at 14. You know, a lot of us are. So maybe that was it. I don't know. It is very, very hard, and it's a very hard bit to watch. And Margaret explains then that the funeral director comes round to them, and you know, they know everything that's been done. They explain this to the funeral director, and he says, "Don't worry, you know, we can do this and that, and we can embalm her, and you'll be able to hug her, hopefully." And this was on a Monday. By the Tuesday, the funeral director comes back and he just says to them, "I've never seen anything like it. There was nothing he could do. She was that badly injured. There was nothing he could do." Which again is it's so sad they didn't even get that. He took that away from them. Now on the 17th of May 1996, it was Kelly's funeral, and her mum explained that it was a day before her 18th because she wanted to keep the dates together. So it's so sad that Kelly's buried on the 17th of May 96, and she would have been 18 on the 18th of May 96. It's just heart-wrenching. No, she said there was a massive turnout. Kelly was so well loved. She was so loved. She was so loved. Everyone on their particular road, a representative from every single house on their road, came to the funeral. The streets were lined for her. The church was standing room only. It was just, you know, it just testament to what a lovely family they were and what a lovely girl. But one thing Margaret did say to the vicar, I think it was the vicar, but she said she didn't want the word forgiveness mentioned in the funeral at all. And he didn't. He knew what had happened to Kelly, and he didn't either. So, you know, that she got some comfort from that. But then they had to wait. They had to wait nearly 18 months because it wasn't until November 1997, obviously gathering the evidence and everything else, the trial of Jimmy Smith began at Manchester Crown Court. And this is when Kelly's family find out the history of Jimmy Smith, that for the past, you know, previous 30 years, he was just building to this point. You know, his marriage was just abusive and violent, and then whatever significant relationship he moved on to after the marriage, she managed to get away. It was the same. It started off charming, then it became controlling. He would keep them captive. You know, if they managed to get away, he'd stalk them. And the only way these women actually got away was because he'd set his sights on someone new. And it's just so sad that the last person set his sights on was Kelly. You know, it's not sad. I mean, in the sense that it's a shame he wasn't caught before then, before it escalated to that point. But Jimmy, he was claiming diminished responsibility. And he was saying that it was Kelly's fault. You know, she told him to do those things to her. She'd been bad, Kelly had, and she needed punishing. You know, he had to do those things to her. She asked him to do those things to her. You know, he gouged her eyes out. He messed inside the optic nerve. I mean, it's crazy. But even Tommy and Margaret say on the show, he's bad, he's evil, he's not mad. And the jury doesn't buy it either, and he's found guilty. No, he got 20 years. Jimmy did. No, like I say, this is 97. Now we are 22 years later, and he still hasn't been released. For anyone's sake, any human, I hope he never gets released. You know, he'd be a fair age now, but someone of that mentality who thinks it's okay to do that and blame the person. mind-blowing. You know, it's the jury themselves, obviously having, after listening to this and, you know, seeing Kelly's life ebb away, like, in real time in front of them, they were the first jury, I think, to ever be offered counselling as a whole, and they all took it. It was that bad, it was that distressing to be in that courtroom. And it's just, I mean, the family are destroyed. You know, they 20 years later, this interview is, and they're just destroyed. They really are. You can see on there, they explain that they're not the same people they were before. They had lives before Kelly died, and this is their life they're living after, but they're not the same people. You know, right up until the end of this show, it's so upsetting, because they say they wake up in the morning thinking of Kelly, they go to sleep thinking of Kelly. You know, I think there's a mass amount of guilt there, you know, that they didn't get to say goodbye, that they couldn't help her. You know, it's just a very, very, very sad story, and I don't think anyone can really, you know, I find it myself difficult to understand, but at the same time, how can you judge? How can you judge? It's I'm very conflicted over it. But yeah, that's the story of Kelly on Bates again. You can see why I felt I needed to tell this story again. My own fault, pressing delete without thinking. And yeah, it leaves you, like all of my videos really, it leaves you a bit, especially when you hear 20 years for what he did to a 17-year-old child, really. It's just shocking, but as I said, you know, he hasn't been released as yet. I haven't heard or read anything that he's due to be released, so, you know, we can all sleep a bit easier. But yeah, thank you for watching again if you have, or thank you for watching if it's the first time. And yeah, I really appreciate it. If you've got any comments, pop in the box, or if you want to subscribe, just mean to get my videos first before anyone else. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, just thank you so much again for joining me. See you soon.